This is such an exciting segment. I wanted to welcome our audience to listen to our very special guest today. This is Nan. Nan has worked with patients for many years as a certified health coach with Lifestyle Medical, a multi-physician general practice. Specializing in lifestyle as medicine, she counsels patients and clients on lifestyle modalities that can make a big difference towards preventing, treating, and reversing disease, feeling energetic, and enjoying life. Having earned a plant-based nutrition certification from the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutritional Studies at Cornell University, she is a culinary trainer, teaching cooking classes for the clinic as well as on her YouTube channel. As a health and lifestyle coach, speaker, and author of Aging Powerfully, Nan is very passionate about helping people understand the power that they have to create vibrant health, balance, and joy in their lives. Welcome, Nan. We are so excited to have you.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you both.
Yes, absolutely. So without wasting any time, we'd like to dive right in. And if you could share your story, what has inspired you to do what you do today? Okay. The floor is yours. Yeah.
Okay. All right. My son says that what I'm doing now, he describes me as at a point in my life where I am mom 3.0, because I had a career over 30 years that began when my son was 4 months old. I had been working full time from the time I was, in my teens. And then I had my son. I stopped working for 4 months, and that was about all I could take. And one of the ways to integrate motherhood and work was that I went to a Tupperware party, and the person said, "You can make your own money, set your own hours." I said, "Sign me up." I remember driving to the demonstrations in the evenings and thinking, I'm free anyway. And I loved the money. And what I found, and one of my difficulties throughout my years, it was finally diagnosed, probably 10 years ago, but I knew there was something wrong, was that I am ADHD and dyslexic. And there were a number of things that I didn't do well. Numbers were really hard, word problems, almost impossible, And so I struggled with a lot of things, but what I found I could do is I could do a killer demonstration. I could be great at training people and inspiring people. So I built a really big team almost immediately through my own enthusiasm and my ability to share of salespeople and people that became part of my team. And at that time, they get a company car to somebody who had a team and a certain amount of sales. I did that in 5 months. Well, then it kept building. I realized that my skills were very attuned to that type of work and that type of expression. And so I built a top team, and ultimately in a few years, they offered me my own franchise. My husband, who is a civil engineer with the city of LA, high ranking, gave notice he was going to go sell plastic. And the two of us began this Tupperware franchise. It's what they call a distributorship, your own warehouse and all of that. And we built that to multi-million dollars a year in sales of Tupperware. And that was 30 years. And then I retired from that, and they were changing the business model. And we decided if we were going to sell, we had to sell at that time, or they were removing that part of the business, that ownership part. And so we sold, and it all worked out very well. And we had bought our dream house while we were succeeding in Tupperware on 2.25 acres. And my son had just gone off to college. We knew we needed something to create. And so we decided that we were turning that 2.25 acres, because the property was not in great shape, but the house was beautiful, into a botanic garden. And so I became a master gardener, a 1-year training at through the university system. My husband did too. And we created a botanic garden that was on garden tours it took about 1.5 years for things to start looking great. And then from that point through when we sold that property, after 10 years, we were on garden tours and even a house tour every year. So that became training to Mom 2.0, and that is that I became a landscape designer. I actually got when I retired from Tupperware, there were two things I was going to do. I was going to become a real estate agent, which would have been disastrous. I can't fill out forms. And but I did. I actually studied real estate, became an agent, and was doing open houses. But at the same time, somebody had asked me if I would design the garden around a bed and breakfast that they were opening, and I did that. And then somebody else asked me if I would work on a 5-acre property for them, and I did that. And then, and I had to get a license plate, and I wanted a wordy license plate, so I made it home to garden, because I was either going to be selling homes or doing gardens, and I thought that would work. Home to garden, and I still have it, home to garden. That's even my email address, hometogarden@gmail.com. Anyway, so I did that for, gosh, at that point, commercially, I did it for 15 years. And it was, well, I had to decide it was either homes or garden. And I took the garden part. I'd done the sales, plus I realized I can't do forms anyway. So I went into gardening, and I did that for those 15 years until I retired from that at 67, 68. I'm 70 now, because I just didn't want to be that much. I didn't want to be in the sun that much. It was rather physical, even though I didn't do installations. It still is rather physical to be designing, but also to be there on installation day, moving things around to make sure everything was the way I liked it. And then I took another 1-year training course and became a certified health coach. And immediately I've always been a good cook and very focused. We trained on things like that in Tupperware. I could show you a product to use by prepping something in it for you. And I went to a cooking class at this medical center, and the COO of the company, because I wasn't a member of the medical center, asked, "Gee, how did you hear about us?" And it was one of their other patients. And I said, "Well, I'm here because I'm a new health coach, and I wanted to see how you did plant-based meals." And he said, "Oh, we're looking for a health coach." And then that was the launch to 3.0. And that's what I've been doing now for over 3 years. And this is absolutely where my heart is, because at this age, at 70, but even at the point when I joined them, I saw the difference that a focus on nutrition, on the pillars of health: nutrition, sleep, stress release, movement, community, avoiding addictive substances. I saw the difference that our way of dealing with patients, in other words, discussing lifestyle rather than medications and procedures, made. I've seen remarkable turnarounds in health. And that's what I do. I work with patients that way at the clinic. And then I also have some private clients. And I love my cooking classes. And when I wrote my book, I was 6 months away from turning 70, and I thought, well, I'm going to have a big party. It's going to be 70 and soaring, the theme. And then I realized, there's more to it than that, because a lot of people, when we hit these ages that are undeniably old, everybody writes about old age as, if you talk about somebody in their 70s, they're going to say, well, they're old. And I realized that that's a mindset that can either lead us down a dark hole. In other words, I'm old now, let's see what falls apart first. Or I'm old, this is the second or the third, the third chapter of my life, of a 3-part life, in other words, from, well, let's say 70 to 100. And if somebody thinks of it that way, we go into it with the spirit of a young person being born, as opposed to, or being launched into, a adult life, rather than thinking of it as the beginning of the end. And that's what I chose to do. I decided, no, I'm going to age with power. I'm going to look at these next 10, 20, and 30 years as full of possibilities, and I'm going to have a mission. And my mission became entwined with what I do, and that is um, aging with power, making choices, having a mindset, adopting a purpose that makes these next decades exciting and motivating. This is the book I wrote, Aging Powerfully. And it talks about something that I'm not proud of, but was part of my life. And that is that I struggled with an eating disorder from the time I was 15 and started to fill out as a young person and felt fat. And so stopped eating, anorexia, until they said, we're going to hospitalize you. And then bulimia. And that went on until I was 67, almost 68. That's a long time. And I'm not proud of that. I coulda, shoulda, woulda stopped a long time ago, but we couldn't get that to happen, not through medication, not through therapies or anything until, and at least for me, this is what worked until I began, did my studying in nutrition, looked at where I wanted to go with my own personal eating plan, and decided that whole food plant-based was what was going to work for me, because I went through that era of avoiding carbohydrates, the Atkins, and then ketosis, which is so popular now, and the carbohydrates are nature's antidepressants and appetite suppressants, and I avoided those, and so I was always hungry, and then the only way to eat them was binge. And it really, and I did that. It owned me. It suppressed any feelings of pride I would ever have, because people would say, oh, you're so together, look how so you succeed at things, you're so, and I had all these accolades, and yet in my mind I thought, boy, if you only saw, if you only knew what I was capable of. And I don't have any secrets now, and that is it is so freeing to know who you are, what you are, and really be that without the secrets. And the reason I think that my whole food plant-based plan lifestyle worked is, first of all, I believe that it is the most nutritious way to eat on the planet, because plant-based foods, fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts, grains, and legumes are all high fiber, and our microbiome, which everybody's talking about now, depends on fiber and variety and color. All of those are filling our cells with phytonutrients, phytochemicals, antioxidants, and the proof's in the pudding. Actually, I feel like I'm aging backwards, because when I began this, I had high cholesterol. I had done 1 year stint with a ketogenic diet, which was a big mistake. But the cholesterol was up to 230. I was pre-diabetic. Everything hurt because rheumatoid arthritis was starting to rage, and it's in my family. And each one of those specialists, because that's what doctors do. Oh, see the rheumatologist, see the cardiologist, you're going to see an endocrinologist. Every one of them wanted to medicate, and it was going to be medication for the rest of my life. And I said, no, I'll do it with diet. And they all said, that's not going to work. Well, here it is 3 years later, and I have what is it, 137 cholesterol. I mean, everything, all my numbers are perfect. And I'm older, and my skin looks better, and my figure is, I don't know, probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 pounds less than I was, because it's easy to keep the weight off, but it's easy to keep the weight off, not by doing funny business like I used to, but because those foods are not calorie dense. And it's just, so in other words, I can stay full, I can eat as much as I want, I can feel satisfied, the carbohydrates are calming. Whole food carbohydrates are such an important distinction there. The apple instead of the fritter, the zucchini instead of the deep fried panko zucchini, those kinds of things. And so my mission in Aging Powerfully is stated very clearly, and that is knowing what I know, feeling what I feel, actually believing I've had a second chance to something that could have ended badly. I could have gotten old, fallen apart, and died thinking that's what life was about. And I know it's not now. We have the choice, and that's what we teach our patients. That's what I talk to clients about, to make decisions every day in some very simple ways, not always easy, but simple ways that will nourish us and give us, as I say in my book, vibrant health, balance, and joy. So I think I ran on a little.
Yeah, no,
No.
you are making our job so easy right now.
Wind her up and let her go.
Yeah, I mean, you addressed so many of the questions that I was going to ask. So, I mean, that was amazing, absolutely amazing. And you're my new hero. I mean, I love the idea of, you know, life can begin again, and it can continue to, to grow. And, I would never, ever have guessed that you are 70 years old. Never. You are beautiful. You radiate. You are positive. It's all about attitude, right? And it's about our continued transformation, which clearly you've done. And it's so inspiring. It's so inspiring.
Thank you.
So yeah, you're welcome. I am curious. I know that you have overcome, a lot of challenges, both personally and professionally. Um, could you maybe talk a little bit? I'd be curious to know what some of the challenges that you might face are with patients and potential clients and clients. Because I know for myself, I've also, in being transparent, have suffered from an eating disorder and body dysmorphia and doing all the unhealthy things that everyone has, done through the years. And I actually think it's funny, you were just talking about back when I was 13, Atkins was popular. And now, the keto diet is just, to me, another way of talking about Atkins. And so binging on a block of cheese and dipping it in mayonnaise was never healthy, but it was zero carbs. So,
I would eat the fat off someone's plate when I was on,
yeah,
thinking, look what I can do, and pounds of bacon, the stuff that would kill us.
Right.
Just for the sake of being told that that's how we could get our weight down.
Right.
It didn't work that way. It made me sick, and
Me
it is
too.
now making an entire population sick.
Right. No, it's true. And then, I mean, I know I'm going a little bit off topic, but
Okay.
actually, I think this is true. Did you know that Dr. Atkins died from a heart attack?
Yes, I do. Heavily overweight, or grossly overweight, and a heart attack.
Yeah, all that fat, and not nutritionally based. So yeah, so circling back, I apologize for going a little bit off track.
That's all right.
Yeah, if you could talk about some of the challenges that you face and how you deal with them with your patients and your clients, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
I think the easiest patient to work with, and maybe this is what people mean by bottoming out, are those who are the most sick. I'm thinking of one. If he heard this interview, he would know who he is, but I'm not going to divulge his name. Who came to us, who was about to lose his leg. He was 80 pounds overweight, so his circulation was terrible, high cholesterol. So there was cardiovascular issues, but one of the worst was that he had been bitten by a brown recluse years before, but the toxins in his system never cleared out, and his leg was becoming, one of his legs below the knee was becoming necrotic, and they were running out of antibiotics or anything that they could treat him with. And so he was told, most likely this is going to happen, and it's going to happen soon, because the flesh is no longer healing. And he went whole food plant-based on a dime. And when I say whole food plant-based, I mean that literally, but I also mean, in essence, we are going to the cleanest, crispest, most perfect nutritional balance that we can give you. And he did it, and with the understanding that the saturated fats, the animal proteins, stimulate things in our body that are inflammatory, whereas plant foods are actually healing. They are anti-inflammatory. They strengthen our immune system, etc. And he went overnight. His wife did too. She's a little teeny thing, like 5 or 4'11" or something like that. She lost 28 pounds just cooking for him and eating that way. He lost 80 pounds. The two of them, he's now 75 and she just turned 70. She's a few months younger than me. They are out now riding bikes, walking miles and miles, playing disc golf. They are our model patients. I think I turned around on a dime because of not only my determination to adopt something that could finally make me feel like I was not afraid of food. I wasn't afraid. With all of the research I had done about whole food plant-based, I trusted that I could eat all I wanted to of the foods that were of the lower caloric density, and those are those foods, except for the seeds and the nuts, and without adding a lot of or any outside oils. Potatoes, rice, beans, squashes, starchy vegetables. You can't eat enough to gain weight on those because the highest is 600 calories a pound, and we usually eat 3 to 4 or 5 pounds a day. Calorie wise, you could eat nothing but those and stay slim. And that's exactly what I have found. And so, and I love, and that's one of the reasons that I'm spending a lot of time putting out videos on cooking, on recipes that I found every day, because I found that if the food is delicious, and this is what I feed people. Nobody gets any animal product when they come in my house. So when people come and stay, if they want to eat something animal based, they have to go outside and find it somewhere else. I'm not going to judge them, but I'm not going to make it. And
I love the rule.
I've now become, and I wasn't initially, it wasn't about, I've always loved animals, but I was able to do what most people have chosen to do, and that is ignore what we know happens to them for the sake of a rationale. Well, they were born to feed me, but I'm going to go a little bit on a high horse. We butcher 8 billion animals a year in this country, butcher them. And it's not pretty. And that's why it's against the law to even show it. And I can't help but when you see the firemen spend all this time getting this little, what is it, a squirrel or something out of a drain pipe or something, or a raccoon get a can off its head. Or I just saw something on the news yesterday where in New Zealand they stopped this whole freeway so a black swan could get her baby across the road. And yet we mutilate and torture these animals to eat them, and we don't have to. We're just used to it. So I've now become very much there's a word for it, and I can't even think of the word. Not only an animal rights advocate, but an ethical vegan. But I don't call myself a vegan because I haven't cleaned out all the leather in my closet. I have leather shoes, and that doesn't jive. But I won't kill anything to put it on anything anymore. So I'll leave that alone. But those foods are truly inflammatory. You can look it up. They are. I'm not making that up. And so when for me, I made the decision that if I could eat comfortably, if I didn't have to be terrified to be full, because with old models and other foods, if I'm full, I've probably eaten too much, and oh my gosh, if I gain weight, that would be awful. I've lost all of that fear, and I'm so grateful for that. Well, my husband had a situation as well. He had we have our pituitary gland in the middle of our brain. It's not brain tissue, but it's the middle of the brain. And there's something called an adenoma, in other words, a tumor. And he had a pituitary adenoma that had to be surgically removed. And so it's like brain surgery, even though it's not really brain tissue. It doesn't matter how they go in, it's gnarly. But he had this removed. Well, the first 2 years, it started to grow back, and we were eating animal products and all. But when we switched to plant-based, the next year it didn't grow. The next year it didn't grow. And the next year it didn't grow. And that's been the 3 years we've been plant-based. And we've expressed to the neurosurgeon that we think it's because we're not eating growth factor foods. IGF-1 comes along with the protein on animal. With animal protein, TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which it becomes after it's processed through the liver, is a inflammatory element that can lead to cancers. And we don't get that on plant proteins. So my husband, all of this to say that my husband, when I said, I'm going to go plant-based for all of these reasons, and he was listening to podcasts along with me. And that's one thing that I've learned, and I'll answer that question too about the challenges. Somebody has to really believe that this makes sense, because they're giving up things they're so used to. They're giving up history of meals with families. They're giving up emotional connections to certain, let's say, celebratory foods like turkey for Thanksgiving and all of that. And they have to really believe it. And so one of the things that I do every morning, I jump out of bed and I exercise for an hour to an hour and a half. It's either going up a mountain. I've just signed up for a 10K race. So now I'm training for a 6.5 mile run. I'm going to show that a plant-based 70-year-old who's never run a step in her life can do this. And so I'm in training for that. But every morning it's either an hour and a half, either running up the mountain or walking up the mountain or on my bike, cycling. And then every evening after dinner, we take a walk to jiggle our bowels. Isn't that funny? I heard that one. I love that visual that I'm going to eat them and then jiggle them so that they'll come out. This is way too much information, but we love our afternoon or after dinner walks, because it does that. It lowers it lowers the insulin that is needed for the digestion of the meal. So in other words, it's better for blood sugar. And we talk for a half an hour every evening when we're taking our walks. So we do all of this. But what was my point about the walk? So first thing in the morning, I do that. And I listen to a podcast when I'm doing it. Well, my husband listens to those same podcasts. He can't help it because we're doing it together. And so he has become just as convinced, based on the science, not just this emotional fear of the return of this tumor, and they're having to then do the radiation that they threatened they would have to do. And so that's one thing I encourage anyone to do who is trying to make a change really in any way. And that is indoctrinate yourself with information on a regular basis. There are podcasts about everything. I listen to Chef AJ, who happens to be a plant-based and weight loss expert, and she does podcasts like crazy. Tammy at Nutmeg Notebook. There's Dr. Esselstyn. There's Joel Furman. There's Dr. Joel Furman. There's Dr. T. Colin Campbell. I could list a number of books that I read after listening to their podcasts or ordered, so I had them for reference, and still listen to their podcasts again and again. The point being, again, that the more we hear a thing from a person that we respect and admire, the easier our decisions become. I found that for myself. I have to encourage patients to do the same, because unless they're in dire straits, it's just too easy to be influenced by the billions of dollars of advertisements, of media, and of exposure everywhere we go to the other way, the standard American diet and the standard American lifestyle. There's just too much money behind them all. And we're told every day that that's the way to live. And that's what's killing us. We've never been sicker as a nation, never. Our lifespan is going down, has gone down every year for the last 3 years because we're so sick. I think, what are we, number 50 in overall health in the world as a nation, and yet we're the richest. So all of that.
Yes, and I love what you're saying and what I'm getting from all of this. And you're answering the question of what's the challenge. And I feel like this is collectively our challenge, right? Is that it's education, right? Like getting this type of information out there. And ultimately, that is why we're hosting the show with that intention, is just to get this information out there as to many people as possible and allowing them to see an alternative to, conventional health. And it's all about more so prevention versus interventions, because once you go into intervention, just in my opinion, it's entirely too late. And so I love that that's what you were sharing, and it's all about education and really understanding what it is that what the person wants, because it's ultimately a lifestyle everlasting change, and it's not a diet fad. It's not about losing that 25 pounds just to feel a certain way in a dress or going to a wedding and such like that. It has to be from within, that they wanted to make that lifestyle change for the better, for the future. And in your words, to age powerfully and
live powerfully. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I love so much what you have shared so far. If you have any last minute or last remarks or parting remarks for our audience, what is the one thing that they can start with if they want to embark on the journey of aging powerfully?
All right. Know what and why. Know what you want to accomplish in terms of your own life's journey. In any way, examine your life and project ahead and understand that you can change that direction, and it's possible, because a lot of people are going where they don't want to go, but don't believe they have the power to change that. Changing it means taking steps. I think one of the first things that we have to take control of is our health, because as soon as we start feeling badly all the time, hurt all over the place, feel that we can't control our weight, and therefore feel bogged down by the heaviness of it all, the lack of energy, and the consequences of not feeling well, we sort of give up agency and we stop trying. As it relates to what to do in terms of that, in terms of diet, I would just say to people, just ultimately you can crowd out rather than simply stop or eating what is the least healthy for you. You can crowd out by making a decision to add in. Look at the reality that whole foods are far more healthy than manufactured foods. And if you look at most people's kitchens, too much, almost everything is manufactured. And if you look at the ingredients, even those things that look like a package of vegetable crisps and whole grain vegetable crisp, when you look at the ingredients, they have emulsifiers, they have preservatives, and then they have massive amounts of oils that are all highly processed. So in other words, start with your whole foods, stop as much as possible with the processed foods, and then just keep adding fruits and vegetables and grains and legumes. Some people, because they've never eaten legumes, have to add even a teaspoon of legumes a day, legumes being beans, to get their gut to a place where you have enough of the microbiome that even knows what it is and can work with it. So little bits at a time. So that's one thing. Make a decision about your food. Make a decision where you want to go, where you see yourself. Know that you can do it. And I am going to suggest that you read my book, because Powerfully is an acronym in my book. And that's 10 health modalities that someone can adopt, all evidence-based, that can take you from ill health through glowing health, but just step at a time. I have I'll be doing a podcast in September with a group that is using my book. It was going to be their book of a month or of the month, and now they've made it 2 months because they said that there's so much that they want to digest in terms of things that they can incorporate into their lives. And it can be like that. It can be like a reference guide. And the first part of it, the first quarter of it, is a memoir about some of the things I talked about earlier.
Amazing. Awesome. So if we want more of Nan, how can we find you?
My website is nansimonsen.com. And on the website, there's a link to my YouTube cooking channel. There is information about where to find me on Instagram and Facebook, and both of those are under Aging Powerfully with Nan. And then contact information is on my website.
Yes, and we are also including all of that as well in our featured speaker email for our audience. So yes, you guys are not going to be missing anything. And thank you so much, listeners and audience. And thank you, Nan, for being here with us. You are a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
But not only that, I'm also feeling there is a lot of hope and care, and also great intention coming from you as well. It's not just, here's the content, do something with it. Like I could feel that you really mean well, and that ultimately this is real for you, and this is what you're doing, and this is what it sounds like to me that you'll be doing for the rest of your life until you're 100. Right? Nan 3.0 is from 70 to 100. So I think, and beyond,
right?
So thank you so much. Truly, we're so honored to have you, and for you to have shared everything that you did. And this is so amazing that you are making a big difference in your world, and now you're really get to, make a difference in ours. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes.
It was great to see you, and Stephanie, terrific to meet you.
Yes.
And bye, everybody. My best to you.
you.